Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot. The shocking family connection nobody saw coming. Welcome back to United Daily Updates, your trusted source for everything Manchester United. If you are watching this on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we bring you the most interesting and reliable Manchester United news every single day. Today, we have something really special for you. Something that will blow your mind. Something that connects our current manager and one of our players in a way you never expected. The story that has everyone talking. Have you ever heard someone joke that a player only gets picked because he is from the same country as the manager? We have all seen those comments on social media. Fans love to make these jokes when things are not going well. But what if I told you that in the case of Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot, there might be more to the story than just sharing a Portuguese passport? No, we are not talking about some conspiracy theory. We are talking about actual family history. Real bloodlines. A connection that goes back more than 100 years to the streets of 19th century Europe where circus performers traveled from town to town entertaining crowds. Yes, you read that right. Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot are actually related. They are family. And their shared ancestor was a circus artist. This is not a made-up story. This is real history that has been confirmed by Manchester United themselves. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let me take you on a journey through time. A journey that starts in France, travels across Europe, and ends up at Old Trafford with two Portuguese football men who probably had no idea they were distant cousins until recently. How did we find out about this connection? Let me start by telling you how this incredible story came to light. It all started with a Portuguese genealogy website called Genealogy. For those who do not know, genealogy is the study of family history. People use these websites to trace their family trees and find out where they came from. Someone, and we do not know exactly who, decided to look into the family backgrounds of both Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot. What they found was absolutely remarkable. Both men share the same great-great-grandfather. His name was Carlos Dalot. Now, you might notice that the spelling is slightly different. Carlos Dalot with two Ls, while Diogo spells his surname Dalot with one L. This happens all the time with family names. Over generations, spellings change. People move to different countries. Records get written down differently. But the connection is real and has been verified. Manchester United have also confirmed this distant relationship between their manager and their defender. So this is not just some internet rumor. This is actual documented family history. Who was Carlos Dalot? Now let me tell you about this fascinating man who connects these two modern football figures. Carlos Dalot was born in France during the 19th century. We are talking about the 1800s here. This was a completely different world. No airplanes. No internet. No television. Entertainment was very different back then. Carlos Dalot was a circus artist. Think about what that means. The circus was one of the biggest forms of entertainment during that era. Families would travel from city to city, from country to country, setting up their tents and performing for crowds. It was a hard life but an exciting one. Carlos did not travel alone. He performed with his siblings. He had a brother named Jose and a sister named Julia. The three Dalot siblings toured all across Europe together. Can you imagine that? Traveling through France, Spain, Portugal, and other countries, bringing joy and entertainment to people who had very few other ways to enjoy themselves. These circus performers were skilled artists. They might have been acrobats, doing flips and jumps that amazed the crowds. They might have been clowns, making people laugh. They might have been juggling or performing magic tricks. The circus had all kinds of acts, and the Dalot family was part of this traveling entertainment world. The journey to Portugal. After years of traveling across Europe, the Dalot family eventually decided to settle down. And where did they choose? Portugal. More specifically, they made Portugal their permanent home and continued their circus performances there. This is where the story really connects to our two Manchester United men. Portugal became the home base for the Dalot circus family. And over the generations, their descendants spread throughout the country. Diogo Dalot has actually talked about this before. He confirmed that his surname has French origins. This makes perfect sense now that we know about Carlos Dalot coming from France. Diogo is from Braga, which is a city in northern Portugal. And Braga is exactly where the circus performers permanently moved to. This is not a coincidence. This is family history playing out over more than a century. Think about how incredible this is. A French circus family travels across Europe in the 1800s. They fall in love with Portugal. They settle in Braga. They have children. Those children have children. And so on for several generations. And now, in 2025, we have two of their descendants working together at one of the biggest football clubs in the world. Diogo Dalot, from Braga to Old Trafford. Let me tell you more about Diogo Dalot and his journey to Manchester United. Diogo was born in Braga on March 18, 1999. That makes him 26 years old right now. He grew up in the same city where his circus-performing ancestors had settled more than 100 years earlier. Like many young Portuguese boys, Diogo fell in love with football at a very young age. He joined the youth academy of Porto, one of the biggest clubs in Portugal. Porto has an excellent reputation for developing young talent, and Diogo was one of their bright prospects. He worked his way through the youth ranks, training hard and improving his game year after year. Finally, he made it to Porto's first team. But here is the interesting thing. He only played 8 games for Porto's senior team. Just 8 matches. And then something big happened. Manchester United came calling. And not just Manchester United, but José Mourinho, one of the most famous managers in football history. Mourinho is also Portuguese, by the way. Seeing a pattern here? Portuguese connections run deep in this story. In 2018, Manchester United paid £19 million to bring the 19-year-old Diogo Dalot to Old Trafford. That is a lot of money for a teenager who had barely played any first-team football. But Mourinho believed in him. In fact, Mourinho called him the best young fullback in Europe. That is massive praise from a manager who had won league titles and Champions Leagues. So Diogo arrived at Manchester United as a highly rated young defender. He has now been at the club for 7 years. He has played 30 times for the Portuguese national team. And he has become an important player for United, especially under the current management of Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim, the manager with the golden touch. Now let me tell you about Ruben Amorim. He is 40 years old, which means he is 14 years older than Dalot. Ruben was born in Lisbon, the capital city of Portugal. Unlike Dalot, who is from the north, Amorim grew up in the heart of Portuguese football culture in Lisbon. Ruben also had a playing career before becoming a manager. He played as a midfielder, and he spent most of his career playing in Lisbon. He played for Belenenses and Benfica, 2 famous clubs in the Portuguese capital. But here is something interesting. In 2012, Ruben had a loan spell at Braga. Yes, the same city where Dalot is from. The same city where their shared ancestors settled with his circus family. Was Ruben walking the same streets that his great-great-grandfather Carlos Dalot once performed on? We will never know for sure, but it is a nice thought, is it not? After retiring from playing, Ruben became a manager. And he was not just any manager. He became one of the most exciting young coaches in European football. He managed Sporting Lisbon and won league titles. He developed a unique style of play with 3 defenders at the back. He got the best out of young players. Big clubs across Europe started noticing him. And then Manchester United came calling. Just like they had done with Dalot years earlier, United decided that this Portuguese talent was exactly what they needed. Ruben Amorim became the manager of Manchester United, taking on one of the biggest jobs in world football. The jokes write themselves. Now, here is where things get funny. Manchester United fans love to joke around on social media. When things are not going well, the jokes and the criticism flow freely. And one of the running jokes has been about Dalot playing so much under Amorim. You see, Amorim has been using Dalot as a wing-back. He has started him in 4 consecutive games on the left side. Some fans have been questioning this decision. They wonder if Dalot is really the best option for that position. And of course, the joke started. People joked that Dalot only plays because he is Portuguese like Amorim. They joked that it is all about national favoritism. They used words like nepotism, which means giving jobs or opportunities to family members instead of choosing the best person for the role. But here is the thing. Those jokes were meant to be just jokes. Nobody actually believed there was any real family connection. It was just fans having fun and expressing their frustration in a humorous way. Except now we find out that there actually is a family connection. They are not just 2 Portuguese guys who happen to work together. They are literally related. They share the same great-great-grandfather. The jokes accidentally had a grain of truth to them, even though nobody knew it at the time. Can you imagine how those fans feel now? The jokes they made as pure fiction turned out to have some basis in reality. Not that Amorim is picking Dalot because of family connections, of course. That would be ridiculous. But the fact that they are related at all is just incredible timing. What does great-great-grandson actually mean? Some of you might be wondering what exactly great-great-grandson means. How distant is this relationship? Let me break it down for you in simple terms. Carlos Dalot, the circus artist, was the original person in this story. He had children. Let us call them Generation 1. Those children grew up and had their own children. That is Generation 2. Those grandchildren of Carlos then had children of their own. That is Generation 3. And those children had kids too. That is Generation 4. Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot are both in that fourth generation down from Carlos Dalot. That is what great-great-grandson means. There are 4 generations separating them from their circus-performing ancestor. Now, does this mean Ruben and Diogo are close relatives? No, not really. They are very distant cousins. They probably have hundreds of other distant cousins they do not know about. Family trees spread out very wide over several generations. But it is still a real connection. They share the same bloodline going back to Carlos Dalot in the 1800s. Think about it this way. If you went back 4 generations in your own family, you would probably find ancestors you know nothing about. People who lived completely different lives. People whose names you have never heard. But they are still part of your family story. That is exactly what this is for Amorim and Dalot. How has Dalot performed under Amorim? Let me get back to football for a moment. Because regardless of family connections, what really matters is how Diogo Dalot is performing on the pitch under Ruben Amorim. As I mentioned earlier, Amorim has been using Dalot as a wing-back. This is a specific position in Amorim's tactical system. Amorim likes to play with 3 centre-backs and wing-backs on either side. The wing-backs have to do a lot of running. They need to defend when the opponent has the ball. But they also need to attack and provide width when their team has possession. It is a demanding role. You need to be very fit. You need to be good at defending. You need to be able to cross the ball. And you need to understand when to push forward and when to stay back. Not every player can do this job effectively. Dalot has played 4 straight games as a left wing-back under Amorim. And the results have been pretty good. Manchester United collected 10 points from a possible 12 during this run. That means they won 3 games and drew 1 game. That is a strong record. So whatever fans might joke about, the reality is that Dalot has been doing a solid job in the role Amorim has given him. The team is getting results. And that is what ultimately matters in football. The circus connection in popular culture. Let me take a step back and talk about the circus for a moment. Because I think it is worth understanding what life was like for Carlos Dalot and his siblings back in the 19th century. The circus was huge entertainment in the 1800s and early 1900s. Before we had movies, television, streaming services, and the internet, people needed other ways to entertain themselves. The circus provided excitement, wonder, and spectacle. Circus families were very close-knit. They traveled together. They trained together. Children grew up learning circus skills from their parents. It was a whole lifestyle, not just a job. These families would spend months on the road, moving from town to town, setting up their big tents, performing shows, and then packing up and moving on to the next location. Life was not easy. They faced bad weather. They dealt with financial uncertainty. They had to constantly find new audiences. But there was also freedom in that lifestyle. They saw the world. They brought joy to people. They were part of a special community of performers. Carlos Dalot and his siblings Jose and Julia were part of this world. They performed across Europe. They entertained thousands of people. And eventually, they found a place they wanted to call home in Portugal. The fact that their descendants went on to become professional footballers is actually not that surprising when you think about it. Circus performers needed to be athletic. They needed coordination. They needed dedication to training. They needed to perform under pressure in front of crowds. These are all qualities that footballers need too. Maybe there is something in the Dalot bloodline. Maybe that circus-performing DNA gave both Ruben and Diogo some advantages. Obviously, I am joking a bit here. But it is fun to think about the connections between their ancestors' career and their own careers in football. Portuguese football and family connections. This story also highlights something interesting about Portuguese football culture. Portugal is not a huge country. It has about 10 million people. That is smaller than many individual cities around the world. And the football community in Portugal is even smaller. Portuguese football people tend to know each other. They cross paths at different clubs. They play together, coach together, work together over the years. It is a tight community. So it is not that shocking that 2 successful Portuguese football people might turn out to be related when you dig into their family history. Portugal has produced some incredible football talent over the years. From Eusebio to Luis Figo to Cristiano Ronaldo to so many others. For such a small country, the impact on world football has been massive. And now we have Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot, both representing Portugal at Manchester United, both sharing a unique family connection. There is something special about Portuguese football. Maybe it is the technical training. Maybe it is the passion for the game. Maybe it is the combination of skill and determination that seems to run through Portuguese players. Whatever it is, It has served Manchester United well over the years. The social media reaction. When this news broke about Amorim and Dalot being related, social media went crazy. Manchester United fans could not believe it. The jokes and memes started flying immediately. Some fans laughed about how their jokes about nepotism accidentally turned out to be kind of true. Others made jokes about circus performers and asked if Amorim and Dalot could juggle or do acrobatics. Some fans created funny graphics showing Amorim and Dalot in circus costumes. The internet did what the internet does best. It took an interesting story and had fun with it. But beyond the jokes, most fans found the story genuinely fascinating. Because it is the kind of thing that sounds made up. If someone told you that the Manchester United manager and one of his players were secretly related through a 19th-century French circus family, you would probably think they were making it up. But truth really is stranger than fiction sometimes. Some fans also pointed out that this does not change anything about whether Dalot should be playing or not. The decisions Amorim makes should be based on football, not family. And there is no indication at all that Amorim is picking Dalot because of any family connection. Amorim is a professional manager who wants to win games. He picks players based on his tactical system and who he thinks will help the team succeed. The family connection is just an interesting piece of trivia. It does not change the football side of things at all. What other family connections exist in football? This story got me thinking about other family connections in football. Because this is not the first time we have seen relatives working together in the sport. There are obvious examples like the Neville brothers, Gary and Phil, who both played for Manchester United. Or the Toure brothers, Yaya and Kolo, who both had successful careers. But those are siblings playing at the same time. There have been many cases of fathers and sons in football. Frank Lampard Sr. and Frank Lampard Jr. both played professionally. Paolo Maldini and his father Cesare both played for AC Milan. Jordi Cruyff followed in the footsteps of his legendary father Johan Cruyff. But what makes the Amorim-Dalot connection unique is that it is so distant. They are not father and son. They are not brothers. They are not even first or second cousins. They are separated by 4 generations. Without genealogy research, they probably never would have known about their connection. It makes you wonder how many other distant family connections exist in football that nobody knows about. Maybe there are players at rival clubs who are actually distant cousins. Maybe there are managers and players who share ancestors from centuries ago. We just do not know because nobody has done the research. The importance of family history. This story also reminds us about the importance of knowing where we come from. Family history is not just about names and dates. It is about understanding the journey that led to you being here today. Diogo Dalot knew that his surname had French origins. He knew his family was from Braga. But did he know about Carlos Dalot, the circus performer? Did he know about his ancestor touring Europe with his siblings? Maybe he did, maybe he did not. But now that this information is public, it adds another layer to his family story. The same goes for Ruben Amorim. He can now tell his children about their great-great-great-grandfather who was a circus artist. He can tell them about how his family came from France to Portugal. These stories become part of family identity. In our modern world, we sometimes forget about the generations that came before us. We focus on the present and the future. But there is value in looking back. There is value in understanding the struggles, adventures, and choices of our ancestors. Because those things shaped who we are today. Carlos Dalot probably never imagined that his descendants would become famous footballers. He was focused on his circus performances, on entertaining crowds, on supporting his family. But his decision to settle in Portugal set in motion a chain of events that led to 2 of his great-great-grandsons working together at Manchester United more than 100 years later. What does this mean for their relationship? One question people have been asking is whether this family connection changes anything about how Amorim and Dalot work together. Do they interact differently now that they know they are related? The honest answer is probably not much. As I explained earlier, being great-great-grandsons of the same person means they are very distant relatives. It is not like they grew up together or knew each other as family members. They are professional colleagues first and foremost. Amorim is the manager. Dalot is a player. Amorim makes decisions about team selection and tactics. Dalot works hard in training and tries to perform well in matches. That relationship does not change because of some shared ancestor from the 1800s. But it is still a fun fact they can bond over. Maybe they joke about it in the dressing room. Maybe they talk about Portuguese history and their family backgrounds. Maybe it gives them something interesting to discuss beyond just football. At the end of the day, what matters is results on the pitch. Manchester United needs to win games. Amorim needs to prove he is the right manager for the club. Dalot needs to keep performing well. The family connection is an interesting sidebar to the main story, but it is not the main story itself. The pressure on both men. Let me talk about the pressure that both Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot are under at Manchester United. Because this is not an easy job for either of them. Manchester United is one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The expectations are enormous. Fans expect the team to compete for Premier League titles and Champions League trophies. Anything less is considered disappointing. The media attention is intense. Every decision gets analysed. Every performance gets scrutinised. For Ruben Amorim, this is a huge step up in his managerial career. He did great work at Sporting Lisbon, but Manchester United is a different level. The pressure is relentless. He needs to get results quickly. He needs to improve players. He needs to develop a clear style of play. And he needs to handle the media and the expectations of millions of fans around the world. For Diogo Dalot, the pressure is different but still significant. He is 26 years old, which means he is in the prime years of his career. This is when he needs to establish himself as a top player. He has been at United for 7 years now, which means he is no longer a young prospect. He is an experienced player who should be delivering consistent performances. Playing wing-back in Amorim's system is demanding. If the team does not get results, Dalot will face criticism. If he makes mistakes, fans will question whether he should be playing. That is just the reality of playing for Manchester United. Both men are under pressure to succeed. The fact that they are distantly related does not change that at all. If anything, now that this family connection is public knowledge, some fans might watch their relationship even more closely. Any decision Amorim makes regarding Dalot will be viewed through this lens. But both men are professionals. They know what is at stake. They know they need to focus on football and block out the noise. The history of Portuguese players at Manchester United. Manchester United has a long history with Portuguese players. It is worth taking a moment to remember some of the Portuguese stars who have worn the famous red shirt over the years. The most obvious one is Cristiano Ronaldo. He joined United as an 18-year-old in 2003 and became one of the greatest players in the club's history. He won 3 Premier League titles, 1 Champions League, and developed into one of the best players in the world during his time at Old Trafford. He returned for a second spell in 2021, though that did not go as well as his first time at the club. Then there is Nani, who also came from Sporting Lisbon. He was at United from 2007 to 2015 and was part of several title-winning teams. At his best, Nani was a brilliant winger who could produce moments of magic. Anderson was another Portuguese-speaking player, though he was Brazilian rather than Portuguese. He came to United with huge expectations but never quite fulfilled his potential due to injuries and fitness issues. Bibi was a Portuguese winger who had a brief and unsuccessful spell at United. He is often remembered as one of the stranger transfers in the club's history. And of course, there were the Portuguese managers. Carlos Queiroz served as assistant manager under Sir Alex Ferguson. And Jose Mourinho was the manager when Diogo Dalot first arrived at the club. So United has strong Portuguese connections. The club clearly believes in Portuguese talent, both players and coaches. Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot are continuing this tradition. And now we know they are doing it as distant family members, which adds another interesting chapter to this story. Could there be more family connections we do not know about? This discovery about Amorim and Dalot makes you wonder what other family connections might exist in football that we simply do not know about yet. Genealogy research takes time and effort. Most people do not dig that deep into their family history unless they have a specific reason to do so. How many current Premier League players might be distant cousins? How many managers might share ancestors from generations ago? How many football people from the same country might have family connections they are completely unaware of? Portugal is particularly interesting in this regard because it is a relatively small country with a strong football culture. It is entirely possible that if you did extensive genealogy research on every Portuguese footballer, you would find all kinds of connections. The same could be true for other countries. Brazil, Argentina, Spain, France, England, all of these countries have produced countless footballers over the decades. Some of those footballers must surely be related to each other in ways nobody has discovered yet. In the past, this kind of research would have been nearly impossible. But now we have genealogy websites and databases that make it much easier to trace family trees. Maybe we will see more stories like this in the future as people dig deeper into the backgrounds of football personalities. The ring of truth in fan jokes. Coming back to the jokes for a moment, there is something almost poetic about how this played out. Fans joked about Dalot getting picked because of favoritism or nepotism. They did not know about any actual family connection. They were just making the kinds of jokes fans always make. But it turned out there really was a family connection, even though it was so distant that neither Amorim nor Dalot probably knew about it until recently. The jokes accidentally contained a grain of truth. This does not mean the jokes were right about the reasons for team selection. Again, there is no indication that Amorim is picking Dalot because of family ties. That would be unprofessional and would not help the team win games. Amorim is picking Dalot because he thinks Dalot is the right player for the wing-back role in his tactical system. But the fact that a family connection exists at all is just one of those strange coincidences that makes football so fascinating. You could not make this up as fiction because people would say it was too unrealistic. Yet here we are, with documented proof that the Manchester United manager and one of his key players share a great-great-grandfather who was a circus performer in the 1800s. What happens next? So where does this story go from here? Well, in terms of the football, not much changes. Ruben Amorim will continue making decisions based on what he thinks is best for the team. Diogo Dalot will continue trying to perform well and keep his place in the starting 11. The family connection is now public knowledge, so it will probably get mentioned in articles and broadcasts from time to time. Commentators might bring it up as an interesting piece of trivia during matches. Fans will continue to make jokes about it on social media. But for Amorim and Dalot themselves, this is probably just a fun fact about their backgrounds. It might give them something to laugh about or discuss privately. It might make them curious about other parts of their family history. But it should not affect how they do their jobs. What would be interesting is if this discovery inspires them to learn more about Carlos Dalot and the circus days. Maybe they could find old records or stories about their ancestors' performances. Maybe there are photographs or newspaper clippings from the 19th century that mention the Dalot circus family. That would be fascinating to see. It would also be interesting to know if there are other descendants of Carlos Dalot out there. Ruben and Diogo are not the only great-great-grandsons. There must be other family members, probably living in Portugal, who share this same ancestry. Maybe some of them follow Manchester United and are now realizing they are distantly related to the manager and the player. Lessons we can learn. I think there are a few lessons we can take from this story beyond just the entertainment value of the coincidence. First, family history matters. Understanding where we come from gives us a sense of identity and connection to the past. Carlos Dalot lived over 100 years ago, but his story is still relevant today because his descendants have gone on to achieve great things. Second, you never know how your choices will affect future generations. When Carlos Dalot and his siblings decided to settle in Portugal instead of continuing to travel, they could not have imagined the impact that decision would have on their descendants. But that choice put their family on a path that eventually led to two of their great-great-grandsons working at Manchester United. Third, the world is more connected than we realize. Even people who seem to have no relationship to each other might share hidden connections. This is true in football and in life generally. We are all part of larger networks and families than we typically think about. Fourth, sometimes the jokes and the memes accidentally contain truth. Manchester United fans joked about Dalot and Amorim having some special connection, and it turned out there really was a connection, just not in the way anyone thought. And finally, football continues to surprise us. Just when you think you have heard everything, a story like this comes along. A manager and a player at one of the world's biggest clubs turn out to be descendants of a 19th century circus family. You cannot predict these things. You just have to enjoy them when they happen. Final thoughts on performance over everything. Before I wrap this up, I want to make one thing very clear. While this family connection is interesting and fun to talk about, it should not be the main focus when evaluating either Ruben Amorim or Diogo Dalot. Amorim should be judged on his results as a manager. Does he get the team playing good football? Does he win matches? Does he develop players? Does he handle the pressure of managing Manchester United? Those are the questions that matter. Dalot should be judged on his performances as a player. Does he defend well? Does he contribute to attacks? Does he fit the system? Is he consistent? Those are the questions that matter for him. The fact that they share a great-great-grandfather is trivia. It is a fun story for articles and blog posts like this one. But it does not change the fundamental reality that both men need to do their jobs well if they want to succeed at Manchester United. Fans have every right to criticize if they think tactical decisions are wrong or if they think certain players are not performing well enough. That is part of being a football supporter. But those criticisms should be based on football reasons, not on family connections or nationality. Manchester United is a club that demands excellence. The history and the expectations are built on success. Amorim and Dalot both know this. They both want to be part of bringing success back to Old Trafford. And they will be judged on whether they help achieve that goal. Wrapping things up. So there you have it. The complete story of how Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot are related through their great-great-grandfather Carlos Dalot, a circus artist who traveled Europe in the 19th century before settling in Portugal. It is a story that has everything. History, family connections, circus performers, international travel. And of course, football at the highest level. It is the kind of story that reminds us why we love this sport. Because football is not just about what happens on the pitch. It is about the people, the stories, the connections that make the game so rich and fascinating. Who knows what other stories are waiting to be discovered? Who knows what other family connections exist that we do not know about yet? That is part of the fun. Every day in football brings something new. Every day there is something to talk about, to debate, to laugh about. For Ruben Amorim and Diogo Dalot, this story is now part of their legacy. Years from now, when people look back at their time at Manchester United, this family connection will be one of the interesting footnotes. The two Portuguese men who worked together at one of the world's biggest clubs and discovered they were both descendants of circus performers. I hope you enjoyed learning about this story as much as I enjoyed researching and writing about it. It is stories like this that make running United daily updates so rewarding. We get to dig deep into the history, the personalities, and the fascinating details that make Manchester United such a special club. Thank you so much for reading this blog post all the way through. If you are watching this on our YouTube channel, please hit that like button, leave a comment letting me know what you think about this story, and do not forget to subscribe if you have not already. We work hard to bring you the most interesting and reliable Manchester United content every single day. And who knows? Maybe the next time you watch a Manchester United match and you see Ruben Amorim on the touchline and Diogo Dalot running up and down the wing, you will remember this story. You will remember Carlos Dalot and his siblings touring Europe with their circus. You will remember the journey from France to Portugal. And you will smile at how this beautiful game continues to surprise us with its stories. Keep supporting Manchester United. Keep enjoying the football. And keep coming back to United Daily Updates for more stories, news, and analysis. Until next time, this is your home for everything Manchester United. Thank you for being part of our community.